Hello, everyone. I'm meteorologist Ted Keller. The hot weather is going to set in. It begins this weekend, and it looks like much of the Central Plains, Mississippi Valley will be hot all of next week. I'll show you how hot. We also still have patches of heavy rain. It looks like the Corn Belt is the target here over the next 5 days. We'll show you some of those forecast totals. The tropics are still fairly quiet for this time of year. All that and more coming up in this edition of Weather to Watch. Let's get right into it. Well, we're going to start off by taking a look at what the computer models, at least the long-range European model, is saying about the 500 millibar flow. Why would I do that? Well, because this right here is a classic summer sign, and we have a ridge of high pressure aloft, and this is a little bit above normal for this period in July. That's what this orange color means. It means that these lines are bending upwards or north, a little bit more than they maybe should be. They should be a little flatter. So this basically is a high pressure area aloft, and it means, and it spells hot weather for everybody at or a little bit north and northwest of that circle right there. So right in this area here is where the hottest weather is going to be, and it's where I live. There's not going to be a lot of rain with this type of setup. In fact, the rainfall rates are below the mean here, but there is an interesting belt here of higher rainfall rates, and we'll cover that when we talk a little bit more about heavy precipitation. So let's take a look at what's going to happen here with these high temperatures. Here's the forecast for Saturday. I live in Springfield, 94. Now, is that really abnormal? No, our normal high is about 90 this time of year. So yeah, it's a little hot. Considering that we've been cool most of the summer, it's going to be a little bit of a change for a lot of us. And the same can be said for almost all of these areas here that you see getting up near 100. They've had a lot of cloud cover and rain in this area for about last month straight. So it's going to be a rude awakening to have summer come back. And on Sunday, this temperature pattern doesn't change a whole lot. Readings in the upper 90s and lower 100s are going to be common throughout all this area on Sunday. Let's just take a sampling. Let's take Little Rock here. And this is a combination of all the models. So you don't have to know what each one of those means, but you can kind of see that there's definitely a trend upwards with the computer model. And the 100-degree line is right there between those two shades of gray. So as we get here, so we're looking at today's high, that's Friday, that's Saturday, that's Sunday. So we're in the mid-90s. Then the consensus of all the models is the white line. So it hits 100 on Tuesday and then goes above 100. In fact, they're forecasting, at least the models are for Little Rock, actual temperatures close to 105, both on Tuesday and on Wednesday. I don't think even that the National Weather Service pulled the trigger on that yet, so it could get very hot there. So as you might expect, there are advisories in effect. An extreme heat warning is in effect for a large chunk of Missouri and a pretty good chunk of Kansas too, and right around the Little Rock area, central Arkansas, with heat advisories kind of surrounding that and down to the south. And also, it didn't show up on here, but there's an excessive heat watch in northern Missouri as well. And then we have one little pocket too of hotter weather in the Carolinas, Raleigh, with the heat advisory as well. If we look for the day 3 through 7 forecast, so today's Friday, so beginning on Sunday and going through basically Thursday, this is where the hazardous heat is forecast to kind of shift or move. So we have, first of all, the 21st, we have this area down here. Then the 21st through the 22nd, it kind of slips over into parts of southern Georgia, northern Florida. Then most of the rest of this is 22nd, beginning on the 22nd, going through the 23rd down here. And the most extensive period of hot weather is July 23rd to the 25th, and that encompasses that entire area there. Well, late on this Friday, we have two pockets of a little bit higher probability of severe weather. One's in Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska, South Dakota. The other one's in areas of Virginia and North Carolina. Both of those are slight risks, or level 2 out of 5 for severe thunderstorms. And what's interesting to me is that this area right here does have a tornado probability attached to it around Sioux Falls and Sioux City, Iowa. This is a 5% risk. So this isn't expected to develop until later on tonight. We'll take a look at a projected computer model here in a minute. If we go to NATOcast, it pretty much confirms that 5% area here, shifts it a little bit more into South Dakota, but it is there. The radar is conspicuously quiet at this hour. Not a whole lot of activity going on here, and probably the most interesting weather is this little severe thunderstorm warning here near Wichita, and a couple of flood warnings down here in parts of Kentucky. But this is the activity that's going to bear some of those severe storms, and we'll take a look at tomorrow's forecast, then I'll show you the forecast radar loop. But Chicago, Des Moines, probably in this for tomorrow, level 2. So is Detroit, Indianapolis, also parts of Nebraska. So, actually for the middle part of July to have slight risks of severe thunderstorms continuing is a fairly significant thing to be able to say. So we looked at today, looked at tomorrow. Let's take a look at the high resolution model here. And this is actually cross that out. It's not through 6 a.m. tomorrow. This is a 48-hour loop. So you see this line of thunderstorms right here. That is in connection with that 5% tornado risk. And then it kind of reinvents itself tomorrow. Remember, the risk area was here. And so we see some more thunderstorms growing in that area as well for tomorrow. Here it comes. And that's the risk for Saturday right there, moving through what I just circled. And then we go ahead to Sunday, and no slight risk, just a marginal risk of severe weather in a large sloping area from the Dakotas and Nebraska all the way out to Washington, D.C., New York, Philadelphia, Norfolk, and even Raleigh. The supercell index for July 25th to July 31st does have that band of severe weather possibilities in that area. So the supercell is just the kind of thunderstorm that is more likely to produce severe weather. It lasts long enough to produce hail. It is a high wind producer by default. Tornadoes, a little more questionable because at this distance we don't know the low-level wind field all that well, but we'll just go ahead and throw it in there as a possibility. And this time of year, what we'd look for in the northern plains are derechos or long-lasting wind events that cross across this entire area. Sometimes I don't see that in the forecast. It would be impossible to see at this distance, but it would take a stronger jet stream push to get that going, which is conceivable. So these folks up here are used to thunderstorms that come out of the northwest. If you just ask anybody who lives in Michigan, they'll tell you that precisely. Let's take a look at what the heavy rain is looking like for the next couple of days. The pocket of most concern is still focused in Virginia, where we have a moderate risk, that's a 40% chance, of thunderstorms being heavy enough with their rain to issue a flash flood warning. So Richmond is in that. Parts of, no, it doesn't get up to Maryland. It's mostly all in Virginia. Then we have this other secondary pocket up here in Iowa on the northern end of where the severe weather is supposed to be. There are watches in effect, flood watches, as you might expect. West Virginia, northern parts of North Carolina. Still a little rainy from the remnants of what was trying to be Dexter down there in Louisiana, and also that little pocket of flood watch up there in parts of Iowa and Illinois. If we extend that over into Saturday now, pretty broad brush area of slight risk. This is a real active zone of rain here over the next couple of days, because if you go ahead to Sunday, this virtually remains unchanged. It's almost the exact same areas. And as a matter of fact, you can see why, because the official forecast for the rain shows Iowa as the epicenter, but anything from the Dakotas through Iowa down into Indiana, Kentucky, even parts of West Virginia is definitely in this sort of wet zone. So is Florida. But we take a look at a little close-up view of this over the next 5 days. That last one and this one are the next 5 days. So we see 2, 3, maybe approaching 4-inch totals there in Iowa. And also same can be said for parts of Indiana. Again, that's just a zoomed in view, maybe even more for room for more rain totals than what I'm showing you here. And if we go to the 3 through 7 day forecast, the 22nd, the Florida area, northern Florida, central Florida, under the gun, and more heavy rain expected around Minneapolis, north and central Wisconsin on July 22nd through the 23rd. Here's the entire U.S. loop now. We can kind of take a look at sit back and look at the broad scale. This is a summer chart if I've ever seen one. We just have thunderstorms popping up like pimples everywhere. We got that one that was warned there in around Wichita, right along the border between Louisiana and Arkansas. Again, that's that little disturbance that came across here and just kind of washed out. And then we still have this zone of active thunderstorms. Notice how a lot of these storms are moving over the same area. That's why Virginia and northern North Carolina continue to be under the gun for probably the heaviest rain probabilities over the next, let's say, 2 days or so before this area takes over. Still a pretty active jet stream across the extreme northern plains. You can tell by the spacing of those red lines. Those are the 500 millibar lines. And so that's a pretty good wind field, even for summer. And that ridge that I showed you first hasn't really built in yet. It is right here. It does have that little leftover disturbance still there. But once that kind of fades away, that high pressure area will build and kind of snuff that out, and the heating will begin. Here's the surface map. We have a warm front moving north through Missouri. A real lack of strong features. We do have a little bit of low pressure in South Dakota. That's going to help fuel that tornado threat, I think, a little bit tonight. The nicest area is this high pressure cell sitting over the eastern Great Lakes. Let's take a look at the synoptic view here. I snapped this at probably about 4 o'clock Central Daylight Time. And look at these delightful temperatures. Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, a 73-degree reading with only a 48-degree dew point. Winds out of the south there. We have temperatures pretty much all in the 70s in Wisconsin, Michigan, over into New York, where they had heat advisories just last week. So a nice cooling trend. And it is typical for high-pressure areas in Canada to kind of make their way this way, if they're going to do so at all. And not so much in the Central Plains. But yeah, the Great Lakes often get relief. So we'll switch gears and look at something completely different. So we have here the high plains. Look at these readings here in Texas, upper 90s, close to 100 degrees with dew points. Not too bad in West Texas, but look at that 75-degree dew point. That's oppressive air. And you'll notice there's always this pooling of higher dew points in eastern Arkansas and western Mississippi. It's just a low-level delta area with a high moisture value, and it's easy to funnel moisture from the Gulf up into that area too. So that's why a lot of times these guys will pull the trigger on heat advisories and extreme heat warnings well before anybody else will. I'm kind of surprised here in Springfield that we are, because we are kind of on an elevated plateau that kind of keeps us a little less oppressive most of the time, but we're not immune from it. So it just depends on where that high pressure ridge sets up. If it sets up in the right place, we definitely heat up. So let's take a look at temperatures over the next couple of days then. Now, all this shows you is individual highs for each reporting station, the numbers, and then the general trend, whether it's above or below normal. Just use this scale right here. So still very cool in the northern plains, but heating up quite a bit in the Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma area. This is for tomorrow. Skip ahead 2 days to Monday. The hot zone is very, very clear here. And skipping ahead to Wednesday, a large chunk of the central U.S. is going to get really hot. Again, that can't reflect that high pressure development, which is right here, any more than just showing you where the orange colors are and the actual highs. And you'll notice Little Rock on Wednesday is 101, and we saw some indications with that chart I showed you earlier that it could even be warmer than that. Okay, but take a look at a couple more things. As you might expect, the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook has a high confidence of hot weather right where that most shade of red is there, right in the central plains. And it's not really going to rain much in that scenario. It's really not going to rain in the Four Corners region very much, I don't think. But there's still, again, front slipping down through here, and so it looks like an above normal temperature pattern. And the August temperature and precipitation forecast came out. So let's take a look at those. This is for the entire month of August now. Kind of a neutral thing here. So kind of an average or probably pretty close to normal temperature pattern in Missouri and Arkansas and the south central U.S. Could be a little toasty in Idaho through August. High confidence of above normal readings there. And it looks like it's going to be a little dry in Montana and the high plains and a little bit wet in the southeast. Let's take a look at the tropics real quick. Well, after some excitement with potential Dexter, we have nothing for the next 7 days. It's still forecast to be an above normal forecast season for hurricanes in the Atlantic. And again, we've had 3 named storms so far. It's early in the season, so there's still a possibility that could develop, no doubt about it. The peak of hurricane season statistically is around September 10th, when we really don't get into it till maybe the middle August or so. So there's time for these waters to stir. And nothing going on here. The next name on the list in the East Pacific would be Gil. And there are some indications that July 30th through the August 5th period, the climate people have taken a look at this, and they think there's a little bit greater than a 20% chance of that area that was so active back in June and early July and has gone dormant. Well, it looks like it's going to turn back on again during that time period. Thanks for watching this edition of Weather to Watch. It comes out every other day, or as the weather necessitates. Please remember to share this with your friends, subscribe to the channel, or at the very least, like what you just watched. Thanks.